Hey, Barb, it's great to see you. Welcome to the Simplifying Entrepreneurship podcast here today.
Hi, Peter. So good to be here.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm glad to have you on and really excited today about this topic around the idea that our thoughts and language and actions all connect and they're all super important as we lead our businesses.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like everything that we do has to have a trajectory. We need to know where
Yeah.
we're going and what's coming next. And I've heard a lot of your guests, and I think we've all said the same thing about recognizing the value of having very clear goals. In fact, in our pre-interview, we talked about maybe speaking about actionable goals, and you reminded me that you've had many guests who have spoken to that. So that is a piece of this, though, because
Yeah, it
what I'm
is.
talking about is the first three steps of a long journey. So the first
Yeah.
step is always how. So my message is how we think dictates how we speak, which will then dictate how we act. And then back again to how we think. And this is for a lot of people. I don't know that a lot of people understand the value of this. If I'm running, I've got a staff of about 16 people, and everything that I always do is want to understand how they're thinking. Are they thinking in my mindset? So to some degree, I need my team to be on the same page. I need my
For sure.
team to know the way I'm thinking. That doesn't suggest that they can't have their own mind and
No.
to be their own person in that role, but I definitely need to be sure that that we're all on the same page moving forward. The
Oh, yeah,
second
for
thing
sure.
is how we talk. So, I have been in a lot of times, a lot of places talking to other people uh, where people's actions and words aren't really aligning with how I know the way they're thinking. And it's very confusing to be on the receiving end of that. So, for example, I work with a lot of families. For example, a mother or father, a caregiver, teaching their child that manners really, really matter, and then driving through a McDonald's and flipping someone the bird because they have to wait too long. So the contradiction between their words and their actions can be very confusing, not just for a child, but for our teams. So we need to make sure that we, first of all, are very clear. We know what we're thinking. When we're clear on how we want to think, we need then to be intentional about the words we use that express that goal. So I was talking earlier, and I said if I'm walking down the street, if I want to walk down the street, to myself, I'm saying, I need to go for a walk down the street. And then I get my shoes on and go. It's the same kind of thing. What am I going to do? How am I going to talk about what am I going to do? And then how am I going to do it? And then finding that you go back to square one to make sure that you're checking in and that you're staying on the right track.
It goes in so many different ways when you think about that, like setting up procedures in your business.
Yep.
Explaining the vision of your business even to your team, right? Like when you talk all about the vision, it's like,
Absolutely.
okay, what's the thought and how? Like you can't expect people to know what you think.
Why do we
So
have a
how do you
vision and a
take it?
mission?
Right. Yeah. You're aligning that stuff. You're bringing it out in the language that matters and sharing it with all in the whole organization so that they can then act upon it.
That's
And you
exactly
can
right.
too, right? As a leader, of course, you have to be saying and acting in that manner, just like you said. Whether you're parenting or whether you're running a business or whatever, managing, it's all of this stuff about making sure that everything is in complete alignment.
We didn't talk about this, but it just struck me. I am living through the EDI lens. Every single thing I'm doing is through the EDI lens, to the point that I know I'm annoying to some of my colleagues, and I'm okay with it because we need to truly understand what that means. And living through the EDI lens is exactly what I'm talking about. It's about being
Give us
very clear.
Give us what EDI lens is
I
for those
apologize.
that don't
Equity,
know.
diversity, and inclusion. So it's
Okay.
one thing you hear a lot of people saying, "Oh my gosh." Okay, I'll give you a quick example. I had a group of people here for an outdoor meeting the other day, and we were talking about EDI, and this person is in the LGBTQ group, and they stood up and they were complaining. First, they were saying their personal needs, which we were all listening to and learning from, and then they went from that platform to tearing down someone else. And I went, wait a minute, EDI means EDI at every level, like everything
Right.
we do. So we don't get to say, well, I need this from you, and I expect that from you, and this is my platform on that. But then I'm not prepared to give you the same. So I just want to take a step back when we're talking to our teams. It can't be just words. It has to be actions. It has to
sure.
be, what kind of signs do you have around your office space? What kind of messages? How do you sign your emails, like, or your notes? That communication has to reflect the way you think and feel, and that then will determine their direction moving forward. Every piece connects to every piece. It's just literally the foundation of who I am and how I live.
You know, we talk a lot about clarity, and it all sort of starts with clarity.
Yeah.
And nobody can have any confidence or build any momentum behind that if that clarity isn't there. And that's why I like these three things: the thoughts, the language, the actions. It kind of goes in there because you're setting up that clarity so that there are no questions.
Right,
There are
exactly.
no, people just know. A lot of people just don't want to have to think about that stuff. It's just like, how are we doing it? Well, this is just the way. This is the way,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And when you have that, everything is easier for the whole organization and everybody within
So
it.
true. We know we put on our shirts with the buttons in front. There's
Sure.
never a question. When we look to buy that shirt, when we look, what is that shirt going to match with? What shirt am I going to wear today? There's no question. We know we're putting the buttons in front. I know that's ridiculously simplified, but that's exactly what you're saying, and I totally agree. There can be questions around the implementation or the limbs that might grow off that particular root. There can be all kinds of growth that comes from that, and we should expect that growth that comes from that. But the essential of who we are as a business and who we want our people in our teams to be, there can be no question. We have to know.
When we started talking a little bit before we got on air here today, we were talking a little bit about this idea that once you kind of have this, you kind of have it laid out, you know what your thoughts are, you know what your language is, you know what your action is, and then you're ready to release this message to everyone. Then it's about sort of the understanding and flipping of that to you lay it out in that language and do the actions and things like that in the way that the person you're trying to relay the message to understands. And I used sort of the three things of it being visual. So for those people that are visual learners, you need to have the language. Well, let's call it language, but essentially the language for those that understand visually, or those that understand auditory, like through hearing it, or those that feel it. The kinesthetic side of things. And, those three things, we need to structure these different, the thoughts, language, and actions in these three different ways so that anybody you're sort of laying that out can then actually absorb what you're trying to lay out. And I like sort of your feeling on that,
I feel like
your take on it.
I think when you meet me, when my employees meet me, when my clients meet me, when my friends meet me, there's very little question about who I am and what I stand for. All you got to do is a 5-second dive on me on my social, which we know is a great indication of who we are, both as professionals and community leaders. You can tell very clearly who I am and what I stand for, so that when I meet you, in the first 5 seconds, I have already indicated who I am and what I stand for. How? Therein lies the trick. It's the words, again, so I know what I'm thinking. Now, how am I going to speak to you? I would never hire somebody and call them names and insult the way they look when they walk into the office, because that would be in direct opposition to the way that I think. So you can tell the way I think by the way that I speak. But what did our parents always tell us? Actions speak louder than words. And so that's where it comes out. So if you're thinking, there's very little, I think when we're talking to our team, as long as we have, and I'm literally closing my eyes as I'm trying to get this message across. If we have the clarity of self, of what our message is supposed to be, what our vision and mission are going to come right after, it's going to be a smooth sail right through. And I just want to say, to your point, all leaders should continually refresh and revisit that vision and mission or those vision and mission statements. Not because I'm suggesting you change them. Keep your core, but one of the tasks I do with my team is to make sure, what would you add to this? Now that you've been here for a month, then check in at 6 months, then check in at a year. So when you're going to do your check-ins with your HR, or whatever you're doing with your team, check in, what would you add to our mission or our vision? Because that allows us as leaders to hear what they're thinking. And then what do we know? That's how they're speaking to our clients. So we need to know who we have, and that's a great way to check in.
You know, and I mean, from my side of things with Business Made Simple coaching, that's a big part of what we do, the vision, the mission, and all that sort of stuff. And even within my businesses, it's something that we review every quarter. And that is a really key piece, is that it's not static.
No.
Those things are not static. And a lot of people, you know, write them down, hang them on the wall, put them in the corporate book, and don't even dust them off every now and then. But nor can anybody even remember what the heck they were.
Right. And that's why
they're not living them, because they don't even know what they are.
It should be a living document. So yes, they're not living them, because I remember, gosh, I was doing consulting for a company that did consulting for other businesses. And I went into this one, it's a farm material store, but there's 3 or 4 of them. And I had the employees in, and the first thing I said was, what's your vision? Or what's your mission? I forget which one I asked. Not one person. You know, one person said, the closest I got was, it's written down, it's on our till. They literally physically see it every day, and it didn't stick with them. Because it means nothing. So if you revisit, the core value is your core vision and mission as a business owner will never change. It'll develop and it will evolve, but the foundation, I'm never going to run a business where my vision and mission have anything to do with cruelty or not being willing to look through the EDI lens. Yeah. I'll evolve it, I'll grow it, I'll unlearn some things and learn some others. But I love that. We need to make that our next goal, to make sure every business owner checks in with their team, because the team changes too. And
even the person that wrote it half the time doesn't know what it is.
Or is gone. Or you know what? You ever look at hockey teams or professional sports teams? They often, in fact, there was a lot of discussion, and I'm not going into it, but there's a lot of discussion around this. One coach used to have his newbie players talk about what didn't work on the team. Okay, this has a lot of discussion around it, but let's look at the meat or the substance of this. Love it. Because it's through new eyes that you can see what, you know, that commercial nose blind? You become business blind. You don't know what's really being thought. So check in with your people, and they might very much surprise you.
Love that. And I think that's a great spot to call this particular conversation today, and looking forward to having you back for another one in the near future, Barb. For now, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you, where they can find you, all that good stuff, so that if anybody wants to, you know, drill down a little deeper with you, they can.
Reach out to me anytime. I can be found on Facebook under Barb Evoy and Fergus Educational Services. My website, I have to tell you, it needs a little work, and I haven't been loving websites lately. I don't know if it's just me, and I'm sorry to any business that's in website, but I haven't been able to figure out the right way to do it. However, you will see me all over social. Instagram, it's _Barbara, same with Twitter, and LinkedIn, I believe is the same thing, or Barbara Evoy, one of those two. You can also email me at fergus.ed@hotmail.com.
Perfect. That's awesome. And, you know, again, thanks for your time today. Some really great stuff here, and appreciate you spending time with us here today.
Look, we have matching bookcases behind us.
Woohoo! Life is good.
Thanks,
we'll talk soon, Barb.
Bye.